Right. Bueno. To the cloud. There it is. Okay. For the recording, welcome back. We are ACI Course 2, Class 8 on October 5th, 2023. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. And see them appear there with you. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion, their wisdom radiating from them, that beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Think about how much you would like to be able to help them. And how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it would be if we could know exactly how and what they would need for them to go on to stop their distress forever. We're learning that maybe it's possible. And so I invite you to grow that wish into a longing. And maybe into an intention. Or even a determination. Then turn your mind back to that precious holy guide. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet. to become one who can help that other in that deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please teach us that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands, and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Nirnyatayam. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings reach their total awakening for the benefit of every other. All right, so let's recall what we learned from last class. Why is it important that we identify the object we deny, the gotcha? Anybody, just speak up. Jana.
To really understand what emptiness is, we have to get a feeling or have to get to know what it is empty of. And so for myself, I remember that it's the thing that we always blame. So it's the impossible.
Right.
And we so strongly believe that there is something self-existent out there, and that we blame it for everything. But it's the thing that we actually deny, the gaksha. It's never been there, never will.
Right. And we need to know what it is we're looking for before we can say it's not there. Good. Then there was that question that said, it is said that if something really existed, it would have to exist in the opposite way that it exists deceptively. And that's so confusing because the way things exist deceptively are the way we think things exist really. And this is saying, no, for things to exist really, that would have to be the opposite of the way that we think they exist really, because the way we think they exist really is in fact deceptive. And it's like intentionally weird, because if we say, oh, if we reword it in a way that's easy, we're missing some nuance of it. So they're pointing out how Svatantrika school says that for anything to exist deceptively, meaning in our world, the way things appear to exist, the way for them to actually exist wrongly to us is that there has to be something appearing and somebody who's perceiving it in a certain way, experiencing it in a certain way. It takes those two pieces. They're not one after the other. It's for every given perception, any given experience, there are these two things happening. There's a thing, and there's the us perceiving that thing in the way that we do. It's not just our perceiving, and it's not just the thing there. It takes both in deceptive reality. Okay. For something to exist deceptively, a thing has to appear to us, and we must perceive it with an unimpaired state of mind, meaning a valid perception. Not correct, but valid. Then your third question was, explain the three different perceptions of the three different types of people in the metaphor of the magic show. Who are the three types of people that those three represent? Does anybody want to try that? Want to explain it to us? Joanna, is that nodding your head or hoping somebody else would do it?
No, I like that one actually. So there's when there's a magic show, there's always the audience, there's a magician, and there's always somebody coming late to the party. And the audience is representing just ordinary people, like me, for example. There's the magician, he's doing a spell. He's showing his stick, and when he's doing the spell, everybody sees something else, like a horse. And the people are under the spell, and the spell is our ignorance. So we see it in the wrong way. And we really believe it is there, the horse. We see it and we believe it. And the magician is someone who has had the direct perception of emptiness already. So he also sees the horse, but he knows he's mistaken. So he knows there's a stick, but he sees the horse also. His seeds are still ripening with ignorance. And the latecomers are the ones who are right now in the perception of emptiness. So they see a stick, they don't see the horse, they don't know what's the fuss about. So they don't have at that moment the deceived perception of reality. Reality.
Yeah.
They see the ultimate reality. So they are not Buddha yet. They don't see both things. They see the stick.
Right.
As I
Right.
understood.
Yeah, good. We'll use that analogy or metaphor, whatever it is, again and again and again as we study ACI. And hopefully as we do, we'll catch some of the nuances of why it's taught like that. And we learn more from it every time we work on it. So to get familiar with it at the beginning is really helpful. But don't expect yourself to aha the nuances. If you get them, great. But not to worry. Okay. Well done, Joanna. So we were studying Gaksha, the thing that could exist independent of any other factor. as a precursor to being able to learn and study about the nature of things, of not existing independent of any other factor. Like, what's there when we remove the gakcha? Don't answer that yet. So we learned the gakcha so we can learn about emptiness. So this class is our beginning study of emptiness by way of learning the different logic tools that are taught, any one of which is sufficient to take us to a deeper understanding of emptiness. But to learn many of them gives us the opportunity to find the one that really speaks to us and gives us a toolbox through which we might have a logical explanation of emptiness that would fit somebody else when we get around to trying to help others understand. So we learn the tool of using logic, and it sounds like we're learning it in order to use it on somebody else. But I found it for myself, it was most helpful to me to use it as a tool on myself. And when I learned how to apply that, I learned that I really could clear think towards myself, and myself could come up with all these yeah buts, yeah but, and then this clear thinking me could address them. And pretty soon, like this way of knowing the ramification of some belief or something that I said started to appear. And I'd hear myself make some statement, or I'd hear somebody make some statement, and boom, my mind would go to the absurd consequences of what I had just said or I heard them say. And it I don't know, it's a funny state of mind, but it helps loosen that grasp on, no, things are what they look like. If we have this skill, if you will, of being able to look into the absurd consequences of some statement that we've made that we're holding to be true. And we learn this method of going, well, if it's true, then this would have to be, and it's not, or this would have to be, and it's not. And every time we do that, we get a little glimpse of pulling away something that we thought was there that isn't. So tonight's class is just learning these 5 different methods, logical methods of looking for the gakcha and the emptiness that removing the gakcha is revealed. The gakcha, that the emptiness that's revealed when we remove the gakcha. And we're going to learn these different ones. They are all stated by way of logical syllogisms. And we learn this method that ends up with this absurd consequence ability to recognize. So this class, we get the names of these 5 classical proofs. And then we'll start our study into one of them. And then through the course of our training, we'll learn all of them. And you'll find, and others as well, you'll find the one that, like for you, you follow it and something becomes clear. The others, not so sure, but that one. And then that gets to be your personal emptiness meditation tool to use. So here's my screen share. We're missing Luisa in my picture. See if I can move this up a little bit. This down a little bit. Ah, there we go. 2 Ginas and 1 Luisa. So here they are. These 5 Tibetan are the names of these 5 classical proofs for emptiness. And this is all you need for your homework and quiz, not in the Tibetan, but I'll give you the English in a minute. So the first one's Chikdudra. Chikdudra. It means one or many. The second one, Dorje Sekma. Dorje means diamond. Sekma means sliver. The sliver of diamond proof. You know, a little teeny, like a cactus sliver in your finger, diamond sliver. Yume Kegok. Yume means exist, not exist. And Kegok means to arise, ge, and gok, deny. So we'll get back to it because the English is not complete. Exist, not exist, arise, deny. And then Mushi Kegok. Mushi is the 4 possibilities. So the 4 possibilities arise, deny. And Dendrel Girikpa. Dendrel is the word for dependent origination. Geshe here uses the term interdependence, but later he doesn't use that term. Dendrel's dependent origination. And Rikpa means reasoning. So this one, the reasoning of dependent origination. And of all of these different proofs for emptiness, apparently this one is the most powerful. And so it gets a nickname, Rikpe Gyalpo, which means the king of reasonings. So for your homework, when it asks, what are those 5 famous proofs of emptiness? Number 1, the emptiness of one or many proof. Chikdudra, the emptiness of one or many proof. Dorje Sekma, the sliver of diamond proof. Yume Kegok, the words mean the denial that things which exist or do not exist could arise. Proof. The denial that things which exist or do not exist could arise. Proof. For me, that English doesn't make sense. When we study it in more depth, we'll see that what the process we're going to go through is looking to see if something that it exists could bring about something else, because we believe that they do. And then we'll look at if something does not exist, can it bring about something to exist? And although it sounds absurd, there are places, conditions where we do believe that that happens. And so it's one way of looking at our experiences in our deceived mind's world to check to see if things happen in the way that we think. So existing things make things happen, non-existing things make things happen. The proof that neither of those can possibly be true. But the words, the denial that things could arise, the denial that things which exist or do not exist could arise. Proof. The fourth one, mushikegok. That mushi, we had it, I think, in earlier this class, or maybe it was ACI 1. The mushi musum, those 4 possibilities. So this is the denial that things could arise through any of the 4 possibilities. Proof. The denial that things could arise through any of the 4 possibilities. Proof. We'll learn it later. And then Dendroki Rikpa, the reasoning of interdependence. Proof. The reasoning of interdependence. Proof. All of these proofs for emptiness. And the nickname for the reasoning of interdependence proof is the king of reasonings. Proof. Okay. So to learn these proofs, we need to learn a little bit about logic. And Buddhist logic isn't all that different than Aristotelian logic, but I was never good at that either. But it's a system, and the system has rules. And if we follow the rules in applying the system, we can come to a conclusion about things that we did not know before, that we could not see, experience through our sensory apparatus, that we really couldn't even think of before. We can bring about the truth of the reality of things that we can't otherwise reach. So it really is a powerful tool when we work with it sufficiently to use it as a tool. And for most of it, it takes a certain amount of hard work because we don't tend to like it, some of us. logic gives us a basis for belief that it's stronger, that it is stronger than our faith, or it's stronger than an authority figure. So if we believe what Buddha says because Buddha said it, that can go a very long way. But sooner or later, enough yak poop will hit the fan and some doubt will come up. If we have this system of proving something to ourselves, well before we get to that level of doubt, our understanding will shift. And it won't matter how much yak poop hits the fan. We will have proved something to ourselves. Because proof means proof, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Faith and authority can wear out. All right. So to use logic, we need to know the method. And the method is that we have these 4 statements. And then what we learn is a sequence of checking the ramification of what that statement says against the ramification of what other parts of the statement says, to weed out statements that can't hold up to reasoning. And each time we find a statement that doesn't hold up, it kicks away the whole logical argument and we start again. So we'll learn those details, I think, next class. Right now, we need to learn just this 4-step setting up the syllogism. So always in our logical sequence, we start with stating our topic for consideration. They call it the subject, state the subject. But the word subject, we're using in this tradition as meaning me. The subject is always me, your me, my me. And then all of a sudden we're using subject as in the subject we study in school. And I find it just confusing. So let's say that our first statement is always stating our topic for consideration. The second statement is we state our assertion about it. What we want to prove about the topic of consideration in number 1. And then statement number 3 is we state our reason for our assertion. It makes sense, doesn't it? Consider the tree outside my window. I do have a tree. It's a pomegranate. My second statement. It's a pomegranate. Why do I say that? Because that's what I planted. Number 4 is give an example. It is, for example, like the tomato plant you planted in your yard last year. You planted tomatoes, you got tomatoes. So it must have been a tomato plant that you planted. You know, truly, that's logic. It's that simple. We use it all the time. Oh, David, let's go for Chinese food because they don't use lard in their beans. It's like, for instance, I can't think of it. It's like, for instance, going to the donut store to get donuts instead of going to the donut store to buy oranges. And it's like a proof in the sense. It's like we're going to get what we want or get what we think we're getting. But it isn't really a proof for why we should go to the Chinese food. And if he checked it all out, he would say, sorry, doesn't hold, start over. So we'll learn that part. Right now, you need these 4. You need these 5, the 5 proofs, the name of the 5 proofs, and these 4 statements in their proper order. State our subject matter, the topic for consideration. Then state our assertion about it. What we want to prove to be true about that thing. Number 3, give our reason for why we say so. And number 4, give an example. Okay, you got these? I'm going to get rid of the screen share. So you can be big faces. So we'll use an example that is a classic example in our tradition, in our literature. And it goes like this. Statement number 1 is consider the 3 knowledges. So that's our topic that we're going to have an assertion about and then make a reason for our assertion. This one is the classical example of the Chik-du-drao proof, the one or many proof. So statement number 1, consider the 3 knowledges. What if we don't know what the 3 knowledges are? It doesn't actually matter for this proof, but it's a window of opportunity for me to tell you what the 3 knowledges are. The first of the 3 knowledges is called basic knowledge. And it refers to the perception of emptiness by a Hinayana level person. Because they're not Mahayana, they say it's more precise to call this emptiness that they perceive selflessness, to distinguish it from the emptiness the experience a Mahayanist has is interpreted differently, affects them differently. Let's put it that way. So basic knowledge, the perception of selflessness by a person on the lesser vehicle, of the lesser vehicle. Path knowledge is the perception of emptiness by a bodhisattva. Then knowledge of all things is omniscience. A Buddha's state of mind, the omniscient aspect of your Buddha mind. It's this knowledge of all things. But in this proof, we are not talking about those three knowledges, any one of them or what they are. We're talking about the subject matter, the three knowledges. Like everybody knows that there are these three different things we come to know that we then never not know, and they have different names. But the three of them come together as a topic of study, and here the three of them come together as the topic of consideration for our proof about them, which you haven't heard what it's going to be yet. But we know it's going to be something about emptiness, because these are emptiness proofs. So then this is the one or many emptiness proof, which we can see why they use this thing called consider the three knowledges. Because is the three knowledges a thing that is many or a thing that is one? One or many. And you'd have to say, well, it depends on how I'm thinking about it. Because when I think about it the way you've just presented it, the topic under consideration is consider the three knowledges. We're talking about it as one thing, aren't we? But it's three different knowledges. So is it one thing or is it many things? You know, we'd say, well, it's many things, three different knowledges. And then somebody else would say, yeah, but we're not considering the three different knowledges. We're considering the topic. Consider those three. That's just one thing. Okay, so what? Let's see where the proof goes. Consider the three knowledges. Statement number one. Statement number two. They do not exist really. They do not exist really. So listen to my tone of voice and watch your mind. Consider the three knowledges. They don't exist, really. Now, consider the three knowledges. They don't exist really. Do you feel a difference between those two? The first one, they don't exist, really. What does your mind do? Oh, there's no such thing. The other one, they don't exist really. It's more confusing, isn't it? I mean, still my mind goes, what does she mean? And that's where this wants to go. It wants to point out that we recognize, is this proof saying those don't really exist at all? Or is this proof saying something else about those three knowledges? We want to question that. And then statement number three is going to give us the reason for why we say those three knowledges don't exist really. And in our investigation of that, we will hopefully show ourselves which of the they don't exist really is meant, which will help us in our future study of gotcha and emptiness, when we come across these statements of, consider that drunk driver that just smashed your car. They don't exist really. And it's like, yes, they do. They smashed my car. Well, your smashed car doesn't exist really. Are they saying, oh, it's all, you made it up, it's all a dream, it doesn't really matter? Yeah, wrong conclusion, because wrong perception, wrong understanding. Okay. With these logical proofs, we start out with objects. And as we get more sophisticated with them, we want eventually to apply this logical reason to our own self, to why we are appearing to ourselves in the way that we are at any given moment. Happy, depressed, discontented, tired, anxious. Consider the me experiencing that. It doesn't exist really. It doesn't exist really. Or it doesn't exist really. Right? We want to have, why? Tell us the punchline. When we catch the punchline, we will see the factor of our behavior and its power. It doesn't come right away, but it comes. And if we can prove to ourselves that our behavior now is the power within which we create our future experiences, if we can prove that to ourselves with logic, we can already change our behavior. We don't have to wait till we've seen emptiness directly to believe it enough to change behavior. To believe it by logic is enough. And the changed behavior that we do helps us reach that direct perception. And then we're already trained in this new behavior. We don't have a whole new set of behaviors to learn. We finesse them and fine-tune them, but we can start from logic. So consider the three knowledges. They do not exist really. It's the really that we're focusing on, not their existence or not existence. It's their really that's important here. What's our reason for asserting that those three knowledges don't exist really? The statement's going to be because they do not exist really as one thing, nor do they exist really as many things. Why are we saying they don't exist really? Because they don't exist really as one thing, and they don't exist really as many things. And is there any other way that something could exist? Something other than one or many? Doesn't that cover all possibility? It's just a way of dividing possible existence. We could have said they don't exist really as something that's all red, and they don't exist really as something that's not all red. And there's no other thing in the existing world. It has to fall in the category of things that are all red or things that are not all red. And what else is there? So this one is plural or singular. And if you can't find it really in the singular category of existing things, are you going to find it in the category of plural, many existing things? Well, we think maybe we probably need to go looking. But many things are made up of multiple one things. And if we can prove that any singular thing can't exist really, then there's no singular things that you can put together to make multiple things that exist really. Do multiple things not exist at all? No, of course they do. Look at a carton of eggs. It's one carton, 12 eggs. It's one and many, isn't it? So it's the
Sorry,
really
cart A?
carton of eggs. The 12 eggs in the little, carton of eggs. Statement number 4 is an example. We give a classical example. Classical meaning an example that everybody would understand. And for this one, they are, for example, like a reflection. Semicolon. The image in a mirror. Like, for example, an image in a mirror. So let's take our break now a little bit early. And we'll talk about what's meant by really. Because that's the key here. So I will pause the recording. It's my job. There we go. And please get refreshed. Me too.
Can I ask you a question?
You may.
I am having very difficult time to remember the logic things, but I noticed when you tell a story with some important things, it's very easy for me to learn to memorize. Will it be possible to give an example sometimes, not a classical ones, but some story or something simple to remember all the
I'll try.
list of.
I'll try.
Thank you.
Sumati does that better
Otherwise,
than
I will
do.
just. Otherwise, I will just remember, try to learn it by the book.
Yeah.
And thank you for.
So is it the proof that we are trying to, if something can be one and many, then it's not one or many. So
Right.
it's nothing really. So we have to say that it has an empty nature.
Right.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I had all the pieces of the puzzle, but I wasn't sure what is the actual
Yeah.
Like how are they showing the connection between these parts? Like, because I can see that something cannot be only one or only many. Everything is both. And
Right.
because nothing can be both in the universe, then something like that.
Yep. Yep.
My story is with the wall.
Okay.
In case Ale can use it.
Okay. So
I used
wait
to
till
look
she's
at-
back. Wait till she's back.
Okay.
Your story about the wall.
Yeah, I don't think if people, yeah, I don't think people can hear me because I'm in the English channel, but and they are in the original channel.
Oh.
Only you.
Okay. So you tell me, and I'll tell them your story.
I used to look at the wall and try to find the wall.
Mhm.
And so I went in my definition of the wall, like it's made of bricks or something like that. But I could never find what is making it a wall, because at the same time it's one thing and many things. So I kind of, it is impossible to pinpoint where is the wall. So I have to say, okay, the wall is coming from me, because it's not in the white, it's not in the painting, it's not in the bricks or in the parts, because it's at the same time many things and one thing. So
Right.
that's my example. I used to look at the wall,
Wow.
stare at the wall and be like, what is the wall?
I know. Good. I did it with the doorknob in retreat, because that's what I could see from my nap, laying on my bed, taking my nap, staring at that doorknob. Good. I'll rely upon you for stories, Flavia. Hello, are we back? Okay, good. Recording is resumed. Flavia shared a story, Ale, so I'm going to share Flavia's. I hope I get it right. Flavia used the wall as her investigation of one or many, and she'd stare at that wall and try to figure out, what is that wall? It's one wall, and it's not the paint, and it's made of bricks behind the paint. It's made of lots of bricks and mortar, but I can't see the bricks and mortar. I know it takes it all to make the one wall. So it's not one wall, and it's not many wall, but there's many things that make up the wall that I can't even see, but I know are there. And so, the wall doesn't exist as one thing, and it doesn't exist as those many things. And I can see that what makes it the wall that I see has to be my mind. Because otherwise, the one wall would be enough for me to see well, and it wouldn't need bricks and mortar. Or seeing the bricks and mortar would make me see the wall like I see it now. And that needs paint and stuff. It has to be my mind. It can't exist as one thing really, or many things really. It has to exist from my mind. And then from there, it's like, well, what makes my mind do that? Okay. All right. So what do we mean by really? Because that's the punchline, really. And here's a big clue. So remember, we're ACI 2. If you're a new beginner, nobody is. The clue is that when we use the word really, we mean in it, from it, self-existently, independent of any other factor. Really. It's not quite what English says really means. Right? For the wall to be real, it means if I go to put my hand through it, it'll, right, be blocked. That's what walls do. They block things. So we mean here real, meaning in it, from it, independent of any other factor. Now, what other factor depends on what level we're looking at. We've learned before. Doesn't exist independently because it depends on its causes. It doesn't exist independently because it depends on its parts. It doesn't exist independently because it depends on that combination of other powered thing and my kuntak, and in no other way than that. It doesn't exist independent of any other factor because it exists by way of appearing to me and me perceiving it in the way that I do. 50-50 school. Highest school, it doesn't exist independent of any other factor. And there, the any other factor is, it does not exist independent of the observer's projection of it, meaning experience of it. At whatever level of experience you're focused upon. Just very subtle differences between those last three. So really would mean consider those three knowledges. They don't exist really, independent of any other factor. Why do we say that? Because they don't exist as one thing really. Meaning they don't exist as a singular thing, independent of any other factor. And they don't exist as multiple singular things, really, meaning independent of any other factor. They are, for example, like a reflection, like an image in a mirror. Do the three knowledges exist deceptively? Yes. Basic knowledge, path knowledge. What was the last one? Can't remember the name of it now. Knowledge of all things. Do they exist as multiple things deceptively? Yes, there's three different ones. So it must be more than one. But are they more than one, really? Independent of any other factor? Are any one of them one thing, really? Independent of any other factor? Do they exist? Yes, of course. But we have to say deceptively. But when you hear deceptively, does it make your mind think, oh, they pretend to be there, but they're not there really? Like they're pretending to be in the library, but when you get to the library, they won't be there. That's not deceptive. Deceptive is they're there independent of any other factor. And it's like, honestly, do we think anything exists independent of any other factor? No, we don't. We know things come from causes. We know things depend on other things. And so as we get to the higher schools, do we know with that same kind of automatic, do we know that they depend on something going on inside me to be what they are? So 50-50 school says they depend on the thing existing, the thing appearing to me, and the me perceiving them. So consider those three knowledges. For me, 30 years ago, they did not exist even deceptively, because I had never heard of them. If the books, right, of them were sitting there in front of me, I would not have seen them as, oh, that's the book on the three knowledges, or that's the, wisdom of the first knowledge, because I didn't know what they were. And I didn't have them appearing to me and me perceiving them happening. So they didn't even exist for me deceptively. But did they not exist at all deceptively? Somebody must have known them, because somebody taught me about them. And then suddenly they exist for me deceptively, because now I'm believing that they always did exist. I just didn't know about them. And now that I do know about them, they exist. In them, from them. They have causes, they have parts, but they don't require me to be perceiving them or thinking about them for them to exist. And yet, they do for me. And they do for you. But not meaning there's nothing there at all. The magician picks up a stick. The three knowledges don't not exist at all, but they don't exist really, meaning independently from their own side, their identity in them, from them. Because if they did, then everybody would have to know about them. I could not have not known about them and then come to know about them if they existed independent of my perception of them. And if their identity and quality is in them, from them, not only could nobody ever not know them, but nothing could affect them. So if there's a thing called the first knowledge that we have to reach, how could we ever reach it if it's a thing that we need to go from not having to having. It couldn't happen if it didn't rely on something coming from me. So consider those three knowledges. They don't exist really, meaning as the three knowledges in them, from them, whether we're talking about the learning about them or that one's own perception, one's own quality of mind, any one or all of those three knowledges, distracted myself, they don't exist really. They don't exist without this factor of being something and our mind is perceiving that something in the way that it does. Experiencing that something in the way that it does. So we're still thinking, I think we're thinking of those three knowledges as something out there that we're going to study and learn about. But it holds true for our own state of mind that we're trying to grow. We want to grow that first basic knowledge, the perception of emptiness that is the selflessness. We want to grow that perception of ourselves as being one that has the path knowledge. It's not going to come from somewhere else. That path knowledge doesn't exist really. Not that it doesn't exist at all. So whatever you have to do, right, to get yourself to trigger that, it sounds like it's saying not exist at all, but no, it means not exist without my projection, right? We'll just jump to highest school. Without my seeds ripening, that's probably even better. Consider the three knowledges. They don't exist without my seeds ripening. Why? Because they don't exist as one thing without my seeds ripening. And they don't exist as multiple things without my seeds ripening. They are, for instance, like a reflection in the mirror. So reflection in the mirror, I find it so helpful. I was in a little cafe once. It didn't feel so little, right? This big room. And I don't know, 20 or so tables and people at all the tables. And I was focused on what I was doing. And then I was waiting, for the service. I just looked up and I scanned the room and I saw this couple at a table and the lady was wearing all white. And it's like, boy, that's me and David. And in an instant, that room shrank to half size and there were half as many people, right? It went from that reality to know that's a mirror, right? So one way of working with, they are, for example, like an image in a mirror. Like we're so easily fooled by the information we take in and we don't check it carefully enough to see what's actual. I'm going to try not to use the word real, actual. But then if you hold, so say dad's holding the baby facing the mirror and mom walks up from behind. Where is baby gonna reach for mom? Right? Forward. Because for the baby, the mom's in front of them. And poor baby reaches for mom and hits this hard, cold thing. I don't know, I'll bet we all did it in some time and we've got a little trauma from that, you know? I can't get to mom. Baby does not naturally go, oh, mom. Doesn't reach behind them for their reality, mom. That's what we're doing when we reach for the donut, when we blame the yelling boss, right? As we start the key to the car, we're interacting with a mirror, which is reflecting the image of our past behavior. Our current experience is coming from something in our past, something from behind us, meaning behind in time. If you ever have a chance to go to Diamond Mountain, find an opportunity to go up to Menla House and ask them to use the bathroom. And when you go in that bathroom, it's like you could dance in there. It's huge. And the wall above the sink is a big mirror. And the house at that point is down low into the ground. So the window that is at your head is actually on the outside at ground level. So when you look out that window, you see the cactus and the flowers and sometimes the javelina. So when you're looking in the mirror, you see in the mirror what's outside the window, because right, it's at that level. So you're standing looking at the mirror and it looks like the javelina, right, are there in the bathroom with you. But of course, you know that what's in front of you is coming from behind you. Right? You know, you can't see it because the window's behind, but you see it in front of you. And it's like, I use that image in many retreats to get this, what's in front of me is coming from behind me because of that window mirror thing going on. And that's this example for things don't exist really as one thing or many things. That doesn't matter so much. What matters is the really. Because what's really going on in the mirror is coming from behind. Meaning behind us in our behavior, our existence. And it's in front of us, meaning it's happening now, which means how we respond to that image in the mirror becomes what will be behind us when we get to the next mirror, right? So it's like we've got these mirrors, ding, ding, ding. And we just go from this one to this one to this one. And what's behind us just follows right along. And we're part of it, which also this imagery helped me recognize that, oh my gosh, the me that's looking back at me, it's the same thing happening. And there isn't a me really who's doing it all. The me involved in it all is part of it, right? That's not for a beginner's class. So the image in the mirror is the example for those things can't exist really as one thing or many things. It's not the one or many, it's the really factor. So if we prove that no one thing, no singular thing can exist really, meaning in it, from it, independent of being experienced by somebody. If one thing can't exist like that, then multiple one things can't exist like that either, and you don't have to prove it. Just prove it for singular things, and that's enough. And that's why it's called the emptiness of one or many proof. We're proving that no singular thing can exist really. Now, how that proof actually proves that we haven't actually gotten to, right? We're just getting the idea of how we apply the statement and what understanding, how important understanding the words in the statement is. Because it won't, this syllogism won't prove that the knowledges don't exist at all, if we think that's what really means. Because these syllogisms get to truth, not to more mistake when we do it right. It would be a mistake to say those three knowledges, if they don't exist as one or many, they must not exist at all. And that's what it's saying. They don't exist, really. Right? That's not what it's saying. So you have a homework question number 4. It says, the key word is, do they really exist? And what's meant by really? Another term could be self-existently. And what we mean by both of those would be independent of our perceiving them in the way that we do. For magic show school, independent of them appearing and us perceiving them, making them be what we are holding them to be. They don't exist as a gaksha. They can't. There's no such thing. But really, to say something exists really is like saying it's a gaksha. Exists independent of any other factor. And we'll show ourselves again and again that there's no such thing as a gaksha. So if we could even show ourselves that we think it's a gaksha, and we've already shown ourselves that there's no such thing, then we'll better understand the misperception that we're having when we think something exists in it, from it. And when we say that that's impossible, it doesn't make the yelling boss just disappear. But it does make our blaming the yelling boss for our upset have a little less impact at first. Eventually, it will, our initial reaction with yelling boss is that same old one, but because of our efforts in our training, the instant we say, oh, not from her, from me, it will change. It doesn't happen right away because that's not self-existent either. We need to build that perception of what we do towards the reaction. Okay? We're learning the basics, and then we're going to add them layer and layer and layer as we go through our training. I already did the example, it's reflection in a mirror. You have a question about that as well? About how that helps us understand that the three knowledges don't exist in the way that we think they do, which is there in front of us from their own side, or they're inside us from their own side. They're like the image in the mirror, the reflection of something. Okay. Our impression that the objects of our experience exist as independent things, and we exist as an independent thing, that impression that those two, bump up against each other in some way, that allows us to blame what we've bumped up against for our immediate next feeling about it. That impression colors our awareness perpetually, moment by moment, because our seeds have all been impressed with that. They all ripen with that. And it's like, well, then how in the world did we ever get here to where we're starting to doubt those seeds? It's pretty extraordinary, actually, because some wee little bitty doubt had to arise at some point, and combined with some way in which we have seen ourselves helping others learn new things. And somehow those pieces grew in influence to the point where they ripened as your whatever experience was that opened you to the Dharma. Whether it was hearing the pen thing or whatever it was. Those were, like anything else, not existing really, but not existing at all. And since then, you have this greater doubt about your reality. And so, right, we're already chipping away at those zillions of seeds that were made with the full-on belief in things in them from them. So really, even a beginning class like this, and even if we're feeling like, I just don't get it, you're already doing some really extraordinary goodness impact in your mental seed management life. And they're growing. Those seeds are not in there really either, because there's no such thing as real mental seeds, meaning in them from them. Is there? It gets so slippery. Okay. So the three knowledges, there are such things. They do exist in the minds of the beings for whom they are appearing and they are being experienced. And none of them exist really independent of appearing and being experienced by the mind of the being who's doing so. Why we get to experience our own or someone else's mind at that level is a result of something. And it's an experience unique to oneself. And so it must be a cause unique to oneself. The angry, yelling boss is my unique experience. So has to be coming from my unique something that I did to make it. That does not make the boss not be there. It doesn't even make the yelling stop. But it changes my blame factor for why I'm having that experience. Can I change the boss from angry, yelling, unpleasant boss to Buddha standing before me by standing there wanting it to happen? No. But can I change my angry, yelling boss to blissful, loving Buddha? Yes. How? By planting that garden, which means angry, yelling boss garden is a garden full of weeds, my weeds. Go out there and pull the weeds. It might be a pleasant job. It might be an unpleasant job. And then plant flowers or vegetables or whatever in place of the weeds. Don't just pull the weeds and leave it blank. The pulling the weeds is a good deed. David and I were going on a trip, like a big fancy vacation. And before we went, he went out into our yard and he weeded, like by hand. He was pulling all this stuff up. And the next day we're on the plane to Egypt, actually. And by the time we're getting on the plane, he's itching. And by the time we're in Egypt, he's covered with this horrible rash. And, you know, Sarahni's giving him homeopathics and it's just getting worse and worse. And we get there, you know, and well, I don't know, he had to go see the doctor. It was terrible. He got a really, really bad reaction. Can you get a bad reaction to a good deed? Ale says yes, Joanna says no. Why can I get a bad reaction to a good deed, Ale?
Because sometimes the result is coming from the previous deeds, even if
Yeah.
you have a good intention, but your experience is
Right.
bad.
Right. So you just said that bad result came from previous deeds, not actually the weeding, because that was a good deed. So it looked like bad result from good deed. And Ale says it was a bad result, but not from that good deed, from some previous bad deed. And that happens, doesn't it? Diamond Cutter Sutra even says, fasten your seatbelt because it's gonna happen. The more goodness we do, the more it seems like crap happens. And for some, it becomes just too much. Right? And like, have compassion. because it could have been us. And they have to back out for a while. Okay. The only way we change our world is through our behavior. We are changing our world through our behavior already, and we always have been. Just for some reason, we never connected the dot before. Now that we're getting a glimpse, we're both blessed and cursed. Because, now we really can't blame anybody or anything on anything. But we're blessed because all we have to do is pull the weed and plant the seed. And it's up to us. We can do it fast, we can do slow, we can do, backwards, forwards. Once we know, then we just try. And trying is enough. All right. So your assignment, the memory, it says memorize the reasoning called the emptiness or one of many. Don't memorize it, just learn it. Statement number 1. Consider the 3 knowledges. Write them out if you want. Basic knowledge, path knowledge, the knowledge of all things. Statement number 2. They don't exist really, and make really in capital letters. Why do we say that? Because they exist neither as one thing, which really exists, capital letters, nor do they exist as many things, which really exist. They are, for example, like a reflection, an image in the mirror. And then your contemplation assignment is review that reasoning. But I suggest you take some other things to explore it with, instead of just saying this one over and over and over again. But consider the 5 swallows in my yard. They don't exist really, because they don't exist as one swallow really, and they don't exist as 5 swallows really. They are like a reflection, like an image in the mirror. They're my mind making, appearing, and me perceiving, and together 5 beautiful swallows in my yard. Then pick something else. People you work with. Do like neutral things. Do things that you like to think about. And then if you feel like you're getting a hold of it, do some things that you don't like so much.
Saguaros, Flavia. I think it's the cactus, right?
Oh, cactus, the saguaro, right. Saguaro, saguaro. Cactus, sorry. The big tall ones, with the arms. Although mine don't have arms yet. All right, that's class. We're done early. I get to put those extra time in my bank account. If you have questions, discussion, I'm happy to stay. Those who are up late are welcome to go, but let's do our dedication. So remember that one we want to be able to help. We have learned stuff that we will use sooner or later to help them in that deep and ultimate way. And that's an extraordinary goodness. So please be really happy with yourself. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy guide. See how happy they are with you. Grow your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them, and offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it, and they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. That love, that compassion, that wisdom. It feels so good, we want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it. By the power of the goodness that we've just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person, to share it with everyone you love, to share it with every existing being everywhere, and see them all filled with loving kindness. And may it be so. All right. Recording done. Are you sure you want to stop recording? Yes, I am. Okay. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate you. Thank you for doing your papers. Saturday is at your service day if you want to have some fun. 7 o'clock. 6 o'clock, 6 to 8. And then Geshe Michael's translator class at 8 o'clock. We will be done in time, I promise you. All right.
Thank you, Mama. Please stay.
You stay too. And no discussion? Everybody's good? Okay. Okay. Bye-bye.